Here we are, Beckley Exhibition Coal Mine, established in 1962. So we're gonna go get our ticket to go on the tour. Okay, we're getting ready to go on the mine tour here, the underground tour of the mine. And a lot of their tools they used, and we'll go discover it. You know, this is just we used donkeys to pull coal cars years ago.
A little piece of rock could fall down. Don't put your hands on the rails. There's places where there's about that much clearance from the rail to the coal. The mines opened up in 1890. It produced coal for 20 years. They shut it down in 1910. 1959, the city of Beckley bought it. 1962, it was opened up to the public. Don't lose anything in between the seats. They're open-ended. If you do, it's going to end up on the mine floor underground. Now, if that happens, don't worry about it. Tell one of the tour guides, and we'll gladly go find it for you. 2 or 3 days later, you can get it off of eBay for half price. And you know that's a good deal right there.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, guys, that concludes the tour. You got any questions? 5 person. Someone comes in early, checks for methane, carbon monoxide. We take a look at the roof and the rib to make sure everything's safe. We don't have to do that here because we don't produce coal. But we still do. Every morning, one of us comes in early and does those checks. We got date boards throughout the mines. We'll put our date and initial on there. Now I'm going to show y'all how they mined coal back in the late 1800s. Now I wasn't around then, guys, all right? Now give me a break now. Today's coal miners are wearing a strap with a battery. It's mostly all remote control. This mines was a pick and shovel all the way. There was never any electrical equipment ever used in this mine. Now we're going to show you some on the other side, but it was never used here. This mines went under the city of Beckley for about 7 miles in diameter. Now they had to take a pick and pick out that coal and shovel it on these cars. This coal seam, 28 inches high. That's what they were working in. They wasn't standing up like me. They were working in 28 inches of coal. I'll explain it to you more as we go on up. The company made the miners work 12-hour shifts. They demanded that they shovel, hand load 10 tons of coal in 12 hours. If they didn't do it, they lose their job. A lot of times they brought their teenage son in to help them get their quota. Now once the car was loaded, they didn't have direct deposit. They had a piece of wood with a number on it. That number corresponded to their name outside. That's how they knew who to pay. Now they were thieves back then like they are today. A lot of times the car would go outside, somebody'd steal that wood and put it on their car. This guy wouldn't get paid. So finally they put the wood in the car first, then they loaded the car up. When it got unloaded outside, they knew who to pay. Now I brought y'all in on a 1930 model locomotive. Now back in these days they had track, but they didn't have electricity underground. How did they drag these cars out of the mines back in those days?
Mules. Mules.
Mules. Horses, donkeys, they even used dogs. Now, has anyone seen the movie Coal Miner's Daughter? Yeah. All right, a lot of people. That's the way it was. Everybody lived in a coal camp. Every coal camp had a company store. Maybe you've heard the song, 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. That's what it was. They bought all their food, clothing, medicine, tools. Everything had to be purchased at the company store. Even the houses they lived in were rented from the company store. If a coal miner got killed back in those days, the company gave the family 3 days to move out, so another family could move in. Each week, the miner went to the company store and withdrew what's called script. It's like a debit card is today. They go in and say, well, I need $20 worth of script to do me for the week. If they went over that, they would deduct it from their pay. They were in bondage to the company store. Now, guys, I've got an LED light on my cat. They didn't have LED lights back then. They started out with a teapot and a can of kerosene. They'd empty that kerosene into the teapot. It would fit on their cat. They would ignite it. It'd be an open flame. Now, what's going to happen if that flame hits a pocket of methane? A lot of methane, there's going to be an explosion. This light only lasted about 3.5 hours. I'd have to relight it again. Now, guys, y'all are being pretty good here. Unlike those 28 elementary kids I had yesterday. After the teapot, they came out with what's called a carbide lamp. This is carbide, this is water. Now, when you mix water with carbide, it forms like acetylene gas. Anybody ever welded?
Oh, yeah.
You see the gas coming out of there? Now, could you imagine working a 12-hour shift with a light like this? That's all they had. Each coal miner had to carry around a can of carbide with them. If they were lucky, this light might last about 4 hours. They'd have to relight it again. If they ran out of water, they had to try to use their spit to relight it. And like I said, if you happen to hit a pocket of methane, there's going to be a popcorn explosion. All right, guys, I want to show everyone how dark it is underground without any light. All right. Now, over the years, my light went out plenty of times. One time my light went out, took them about 30 minutes to find me. I had one major problem, one major concern, and it wasn't going to the bathroom. I don't have to have a light to go to the bathroom. I had one big problem. Can anybody tell me what it was? I had to worry about a rat crawling on me. Now, y'all came here to hear about those rats. I'm going to tell you all about them on the other side over there. He's to check for methane. They did away with them in the mid-70s or so. And you could take this lamp and put it a foot from the roof. If the top of that flame turns blue and elongates, that means you're in methane gas. They didn't have any way to check back then. We also use this to check for low oxygen. You could be walking along, and it happened to me plenty of times. You'd be walking along, if that flame starts to go out or goes out, there's not enough oxygen in front of me to survive. They didn't have any way to check back in those days. Today, I've been retired about 10 years. They wanted a tour guide, so here I am. Today, they use a spotter. All you do is push a button. It'll give you a methane check and a carbon monoxide check. Now, they had one way to check for low air and methane back in those days. And this is what it was right here. Now, what is that?
Canary.
No one's heard of West Virginia, but they've heard about canaries in the coal mines. There's my buddy there that left Las Vegas. I don't blame you a bit. This one here's had its better days. Where'd they buy the material to build the cage? Company store. They went to work, they set the canary right here. They start picking and shoving. If that canary is chirping and singing something like Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, everything's fine. It's laying flat on its back with its legs up in the air. It's only a matter of time before it's going to get you. These canaries saved a lot of coal miners' lives back there. Now, we got any mathematicians on here? All right, guys, back in those days, they had to work a 12-hour shift. They had to hand load 10 tons of coal. They only made 20 cents a ton. So they would shovel 10 tons of coal that day, and at 20 cents a ton, how much money they make that day?
$2.
$2. That was one back there. You was the one, but $2. Then they had to spend $5 or $6 just to pay for a little shack they did. Today's coal miners make anywhere from 85 to a little over 100,000 a year. Now, guys, we're gonna leave here. We're gonna go over there to the other side. I'm going to show y'all the next step to coal mining. They're still going to be using a pick, but they're going to be doing one thing different. We're going to slowly progress, if you want to call it that. Watch your heads. Now they're still using a pick, but they're doing something different. Instead of picking down, those poor guys are laying on their side. They're picking in, 3 feet in and all the way across. That coal's hard too. Now that's called an undercut. And this is their actual work area, by the way. You see that old breast auger? What are they going to do different?
Dynamite?
That's right. They're going to blast it down. It's got to have a place to fall. After the undercut, they took that old breast auger. They drilled 3 holes. They reached in their pocket. They got out their little balls of black powder with their fuses, which they purchased at the store. They shoved the black powder in the holes. The fuse wires will be hanging down. Now, back in those days, they had to go look for dirt and mud. Anything they could find to shove in behind that powder. We're using a stick to make it real tight. That's called tamping it up. Now, why would they do that?
So the explosion goes through the coal, not back out the hole.
Very good. If they didn't do it, the shot would go through the hole and the coal wouldn't fall down. Now, after that, there'd be a cable going around the corner with a battery on it. They'd wire it up and they'd scream real loud, just like they do today. Fire, fire, fire in the hole. That gives everybody a warning there's going to be a blast. They blast the coal down. The old mule shoves the car up there. The guy shovels the coal up. Now that's rock right there. They would blast that rock down at night and get it out of the way if the animal didn't have enough room to work. They didn't care about the coal miner.
Right.
If that animal didn't have enough height, they'd blast that rock down at night and get it out of the way. All right, guys, now we're going to drift down, right down here and see my boat. They blast the coal down, bring the machine up. Once the coal got right there, they turn these things on. They're called gathering arms. And what it did, it pulled the coal right into here. Now, who could tell me what's underneath the coal right there? Conveyor chain, that's right. They turn that chain on, load that car up in about a minute. So things are starting to get a little bit better. All right. Now, every time I do this, some adult will blurt out the answer. Now, come on. You know, what about you back there? What does that look like to you there on the end? What does that look like? Skateboard, scooter. Now, how's it work? You just put it right here on the track. If you want to go somewhere, you put your knee right here and start pushing, just like that. That was a modern way of transportation. Over your heads is 125 feet of mountain. If I drill a hole right here, we go up 125 feet, we'd be outside. Those things over your heads are called roof bolts. Those roof bolts is what's keeping the rock from falling on your heads. During COVID, they came in here and they put up a lot of new roof bolts everywhere to make it safer. We call this a pizza pan. Drill your hole, drop your pan down. This is what it sounds like when you're done. and it's there to stay. I go up to my grandfather's on weekends. He'd give me chores to do. I remember every Friday night at 9 o'clock that I'll get a cup of coffee and kick back and watch Gunsmoke. And Gunsmoke still comes on around here every night at 9 o'clock. I looked in his bucket for a snack. His teeth were in there. I believe he soaked them in there all night. All right, guys. Any mines I ever worked at has rats. We don't have rats here because we don't produce coal. If we produce coal, there'd be noise and food. The rats would come, the miners would feed them. The rat is a friend to the coal miner, just like that what I showed y'all over there. Canary. They have the keen sense of smell and hearing, and they're smart. I've seen these rats take their tail and lift the lid right off of that dinner bucket. Many times I'd be having my lunch and I'd see a rat crawl by dragging a sandwich or one of those little Debbie cakes. They love those little cakes. Sometimes they look over at you like, that's right, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. If you see a bunch of rats take off running toward the outside, there's something going on. There's either smoke on the way, the roof could be bad. The rats always knew. That's why the miners took care of them. All right, guys. This is called a supplementary roof jack. Now, we used to put these up in the old days when you couldn't put up these roof bolts. This thing will hold an incredible amount of weight. Now, I don't have time to explain the different types of coal mining in here. I'm going to put my light on bright again. Don't nobody give me a bad review. Now, if you look all around you, those are pillars of coal. All around you, those are pillars of coal. If we took those pillars of coal out of here, this whole mountain would fall in on us. The coal is what's keeping the mountain from falling in on you, not the roof bolts. The roof bolts are just protecting you from that little stuff, that slate that can kill you, but the coal keeps the mountain from falling on you. Now, I had a lady the other day tell me, this is not a coal mine. I said, what do you mean? She said, that's white. That's rock dust on that coal. Rock dust is limestone. It neutralizes that fine coal dust. About a few years ago, we had a mine explosion near here. 29 miners died. I knew one of the guys. One reason the mines blew up, they didn't have enough rock dust applied to the coal. Now, they didn't have modern technology back then. Today, we could take all this coal out of here. That's called pillar mining or longwall mining. When you do that, the roof is continually falling behind you at all times. I've seen so much pressure before a major roof fall, these jacks will buckle over, snap and break. Right before a major roof fall, these plates will ping out. They'll go ping, and they shoot out just like a shotgun before the mountain falls in. These timbers look strong. They'll break just like a toothpick when the mountain's ready to come in. Now, this is a drift mines. We went straight in. There's slope mines where you go underground like that. Then there's shaft mines. I've worked in a shaft mine where 30 men get on an elevator and go straight down 700 feet. Down there, the methane is really hot. You have to have a lot of ventilation to keep that methane swept away. Coal seams vary. I've worked in mines where I could hear men above me working. I've worked in mines where I could hear men down below me working. Now, this is the old mine phone we used to use. Come in outside, we need help. Well, you might get an answer, you might not. You only had a little wire going from here to the outside. If a rock or something falls, you don't have any communication. I've got 2 nephews that work underground near here today. Guess what they got underground now for communication? Wi-Fi stations, every so many feet. Not all the mines yet. They got this fiber optic stuff. I'm sure there's people on here to understand it. I don't. All I know is they got these specialized phones. They try to text their girlfriend outside, but it don't work. They got Wi-Fi underground. All right, guys. Anybody got a question?
The coal companies built entire towns from the ground up to provide for their workers. Schools, churches, stores, theaters, and residential structures were constructed for miners and their families. Coal camps in southern West Virginia generally dated from the 1800s through the 1930s. Authentic structures have been moved from actual coal camps and rebuilt at the New River Park. Here, a superintendent's house, typical miner's house, bachelor shanty, coal town schoolhouse, and the coal camp church just ahead are waiting to be explored. Interpreters are at the building will tell you about the life in the coal camps and gladly answer questions that you may have.
Here's a display of the lunch pails, or lunch buckets, whatever you want to call them.